And you are now live.
Thank you, Aisha. So welcome everyone to today's FBS Chat. Got Diana Conroy with us today from Nairobi in Kenya. We can see some palm trees in the background there. I don't think I've ever seen a kind of bio like yours, Diana. It seems like the area that you're working in is, from the outside, looks just like from one crisis to the next to the next. Um, uh, and I'm
Is that me on the work, Joe? That's the thing.
I'm really fascinated. What was your journey? How on earth do you end up doing what you're doing at the moment? And when did SF kind of turn up on the door?
Wow, that's a great question. And yes, I'm afraid there's no monkeys in the background today. We're lucky enough to get monkeys on our campus, and they're very naughty. They often will steal your muffin if you're having coffee. I work for United Nations World Food Programme, and I'm based in Nairobi. And I guess it's quite an unusual role, really, for a solution-focused brief therapy practitioner. And it was a meandering journey that started in social work. I qualified. I was very lucky. In my early 30s, I got on a scholarship program with Kent County Council, who I'm still immensely grateful to, called Ready for Practice, to be trained to become a child protection social worker. And they paid for me to go to university. They paid me through university, and I worked for them as a social work assistant while going through university. And I qualified in 2008 now. And after I finished qualifying, I did their post-qualifying program, and that's the first time I came across solution-focused brief therapy. And there was something about it that really resonated with me. The fact that I think I found it really radical, because until that point, I'd been quite interested in kind of attachment. Of course, I was a social worker and more psychodynamic theory. And it felt very radical to me that you didn't need to solve or go to the past in order to move forward. And I thought, hang on, how can this work? Surely we need to know, that incident where my mother shamed me when I was 4 years old. But I found in practice that you don't, and people can move forward from some quite profound difficulties. So I started using it as a child protection social work, and I did my tour of duty in child protection social work, and until 2010, when I moved into a secondary adult mental health team. And I started working there with people with severe and enduring mental illnesses. So, all sorts of things, depression, anxiety. And I started to get interested in a group who are labelled as having personality disorder. But as we know, it's a label, simply a label that mainly explains a complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Complex post-traumatic stress response, I prefer it. So, and while I was working in that team, by this time it was around 2014, and I was a senior practitioner by then. And I was being asked to do critical incident analysis of people that had hurt themselves or died under our care, contribute to that. And what I found was, in a couple of these investigations, is that people had died waiting for psychotherapy, because the secondary psychotherapy service was pretty overwhelmed at that time. There was like a year's waiting list. So I saw a gap, and I'd been using solution focus throughout, and I'd used it for a lot of assessment work, which I found really helpful. I think I was the practitioner in the team that had the smallest bounce back after initial assessments, because I did it in a solution focused way. So when people were referred to the secondary mental health team, they turned up for assessment. The question was, what's your best hope from this assessment? How can I make it really useful for you? So it immediately took them in a direction. That turned up to talk about all their problems, and it took them in a direction of solutions, and the fact that they could move forward from what was going on for them. Seeing this gap in our services, I wrote a business case and I persuaded our trust, the Kent Medway Partnership Trust, to fund my solution focus training with Brief. That was, I think it was 2014, 2015. Yeah, so I went and I trained with Brief, who I think are fantastic and gave me some absolutely brilliant training and brilliant tools for using in my work. And I qualified, I think it was 2015. And then a year later, I was a bit naughty really, because a year later my son went on his gap year, and I decided I wanted a gap year, so I actually left the service after funded me. So I'm sorry, KMPT. I'm sorry I did that, but I did take it somewhere useful. You did contribute to something helpful, because I left to travel, and on my travels I saw a job advertised working as a staff counsellor for United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, and I applied for it and I got it. And it turned out that the lady that recruited me had worked in the NHS as well, so knew the sort of work that I've been doing. So I initially took it to Afghanistan. I did that for a year. I came back to UK after about 18 months of travelling and working abroad, and my son was starting university and needed my support, so I came back to UK, and I ended up working as an academic for a while. I was interested in doing research, and I'd done my master's by this point. I actually wrote some of my dissertation in a container in Afghanistan. So I came back to UK for a while, stayed back in the UK until 2023, when I decided that my heart is in field work, and being a therapist and working with people. So I applied to go back to the UN, and I was lucky enough to be recruited by the World Food Programme and become the first country counsellor in Kenya. So I started that in November 2023, and it's been great. So my job is based in Nairobi, and I look after around 500 staff who work for the United Nations World Food Programme, we call it WFP. And I support them in what is very challenging work, seeing humanitarian settings all over the country of Kenya.
Wow.
So quite a journey, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
And it's still ongoing, and I guess that's a lovely thing, is that it's a constant unfolding.
And going back to the child protection work, I guess you would have been doing something completely different, in the sense that, was there concerns that being solution focused, you may miss out on any child protection issues? Do you see what I mean? How did you make that balance between finding strengths and resources in the people that you work with, but also keeping an eye on safety of the child, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was at the time I was influenced by Andrew Terrell's book Signs of Safety, and I guess it's holding both, and I think that's something that's been helpful to learn over the career. It's the ands. Yes, look for signs of strength and safety, and you are also realistic and mindful of what is actually kind of going on here, and you don't fall into the traps that are constantly identified in, like, the serious, like the Monroe Review, the serious case reviews about start again syndrome, seeing not seeing, that kind of thing. So so I have a strong belief that you can do both, and of course, when working with risk, I mean, I was an approved mental health professional when I worked in the secondary mental health team, so I worked with the highest levels of risk that you can pretty much get in a secondary mental health team, where people are at risk of being detained under the Mental Health Act. And I was doing Mental Health Act assessments using solution-focused approaches as well. So I guess it's about holding both, that it's holding that reality and the realism, and also the belief that people have capacity to change, and that they have the strengths and resources in order to do that too.
And like you said, the clients that you were seeing through the NHS, I mean, they would have been at real crisis. It's not coming in and, I don't know, maybe wanting to end their own lives or whatever. So did you ever think, can I ask someone their best hopes because look at what they're going through? Do you know what I mean? Did it ever think like, how do they keep hope going? Just in such difficult situations where they just don't want to be there anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to meet the person where they are. And I guess, it's about kind of tailoring your solution focused questions as well. Like, I remember when I first started doing my training, I was doing a mental health facts assessment, and I was very much kind of cookbook, following Brief's model at the time. And I remember saying to this client who I was interviewing in a Section 136 suite as a place of safety. They'd been found to be mentally unwell in a place of public access and being taken to this place, and saying early on, saying, "Oh, what are your best hopes?" And I remember him saying, "Well, not to be fucking sectioned." I thought, okay, this is what I need to say is, like, how can I make this helpful for you? And I think one of the really powerful questions in solution focused work is about, when someone says something, what difference will that make for you? So, to be sectioned, well, what difference will it make for you? And sometimes you get clients that want to go to hospital, and of course I worked with clients in crisis, and that's probably why I was recruited to Afghanistan, because I'd done a lot of crisis work. But when I was a senior and doing my training, I was given complex cases around complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I did some additional training with Kent and Medway Partnership Trust. They had a very, very good personality disorder service, and they also gave me additional training to understand that. But obviously, they are seen as the most challenging and high risk clients, and of course there's very often trauma sitting there. And two, I guess that again it goes back to what I was saying at the start, in that the radical thing about this approach is that people can move on from their difficulties even if they don't kind of do the deep dive. And of course, some people need to do the deep dive. It depends on the client, and I think that's part of the approach is to kind of know that it's not one size fits all. We have to adapt it as well for people. Overall, I mean, I use it regularly with clients now in Kenya. I've used it extensively cross-culturally, and I can say with clarity and experience that it's a really excellent cross-cultural model, because it puts the client in charge.
Yeah. So from going to crisis situations in the NHS, you thought, I'm going to go to Afghanistan. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, I decided to take a career break, and do some travelling, but I wasn't sure what to do. So I thought I'd just start looking around for jobs in the NGOs and this sector, humanitarian sector. I'd always been interested in humanitarian work, and it was just timing, really. And I'd always wanted to work for the UN, actually, and this is going to sound the cheesiest of cheesiest things. So get your grater out. I'm just about to put a load of cheese on this. When I was 13, I saw Live Aid, right, and it had a profound impact on me. And I saw the Ethiopian famine and the response to it, and I saw the humanitarians, and I remember seeing the blue boxes and the UN, and it was at that point I I knew that I wanted to work for the UN. But of course, coming from a working class background in East London, that career pathway wasn't immediately clear for me, because I left school at 16, and my family were very much around kind of hard working values. So it just took me a while to find it. So, but I was absolutely over them. I mean, I was absolutely over the moon to have the opportunity to work for the UN and go to Afghanistan and, you know, go and work in a very challenging environment and support people through all sorts of things, really. I mean, obviously there were critical incidents that we dealt with, where you know, we had some of us. I remember there was some of our staff being shelled in a bunker, and I was talking to them on the phone. And then there was other incidents where people, you know, our convoys had been fired with RPGs by the Taliban were very active at that point. And then, of course, there was also that people were living in a very, very scary place. And we were on a compound, yes, but there was only a wall separating us from, you know, the rest of the rest of the country. And I did travel around the country as well. And I remember 2 weeks after I'd been there, there was a massive boom at 5 a.m. in the morning, and there was a complex attack. We call it a complex attack, where they go and there's bombs, and then people go inside and start shooting. There was a complex attack on the compound next door to us, and we had to stay in because there were bullets coming in and stuff. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? what have I done? But yeah, I mean, I didn't do it for that long. It was a year, but it was long enough as a kind of start into humanitarian work and to live in a very different environment. You know, people have lives there, and you know, there were all sorts of problems. There family problems, people being separated from family, people feeling really anxious about living in Afghanistan, people falling out at work, you know, the usual stuff, you know, relationship problems, you know, heartbreak. So you know, the human experience as well is there, you know, within all that too.
And then was your role mainly supporting the support workers, or were you also working with some of the survivors?
Well, I worked with the staff, so it was to support the staff, and they came from a range of backgrounds. So you know, it was a range of people. I supported national and international staff, and there was, you know, all sorts of people there, you know, and you know, there was some issues with people who kind of returning, you know, that did have quite severe mental health problems. There was someone who had become psychotic and had to be evacuated, and there was, you know, another person with PTSD and stuff, or PTSD symptoms. You know, that there was. I mean, risk is. I mean, it's like now that, you know, there is less risk because you've got highly, you know, you're working with, your client group is, you know, high functioning. Still exists now and again, you know, domestic abuse, you know, that kind of stuff comes up. You know?
And I guess in situations like that, they're the ones that probably need hope the most.
Yeah, and hope's for us to hold, isn't it, as solution focused activity. And I think that's one of the gifts of the model, is that we get to hold that for people, and that we kind of are a bit of a mirror for them too.
So from Afghanistan, you went into the World Food Programme, is that right?
No, I came back to UK for a little while, and I worked as an academic. I was a senior lecturer at Leeds Beckett, and I run programs in psychological therapies and mental health, and particularly trauma-informed practice. That became a bit of a specialism at one point, because I guess, you know, I'd done child protection and social work, then I got into adult mental health, and I'd specialised in working with people with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and my master's was in post-traumatic stress disorder. And then, you know, from that, I kind of moved into the kind of more academic work. So I taught trauma-informed. I led modules and training professionals in trauma-informed practice, and solution-focused as well, and motivational interviewing and a bit of compassion-focused stuff. So I did that, and then I returned to field work, and I started this current role in November 2023. So I've been here, 2.5 years now.
Yeah.
Well, luckily enough, I mean, I feel very blessed. I've got a wonderful job, to be honest. It's such an interesting job, and we are lucky in the World Food Programme that they are very focused on well-being, and we have a really excellent well-being department at Rome, and our country decided to invest in a counsellor specifically for our country staff, you know, just covering Kenya. So so I've been able to, you know, to go out to field duty stations a lot, really get to know staff, build relationships with staff. And our field duty stations are pretty, they're all over the country, and a couple of our biggest ones are in hardship areas. We've got our field duty station in Kakuma, which services a very large refugee camp, as does our station in Dadaab. So they both do food distribution, oversee food distribution for refugees, very large, long-standing refugee camps. I think Dadaab has been there. There's kind of four kind of locations that make up this really big refugee camp. That's been there since the 90s. Because the war in Somalia has gone on since then. So that's quite challenging, you know, to work in staff, and not just challenging psychologically. I mean, it's physically, it's quite challenging as well, because you're living in a compound. Security is very poor. It's very hot as well. You know, it's got those additional elements to it as well. So so I guess I'm lucky to work for an organisation where I've had the opportunity to kind of, they support me going out to the field, so I go out to all our field duty stations really regularly. Last month, I think I did 3 back-to-back field trips, and I do solution-focused therapy. I do individual work, and a lot of my work is with teams as well. I'm just about to. I did some facilitation training last year. I've done a lot of teamwork retreats, and unfortunately last year, as you may have seen on the news, the funding crisis happened, and the landscape changed for us, the world changed for us, and unfortunately we lost 30% of our people. It was a really difficult year for people. It was really hard. We lost 30% of our staff here, and a lot of our staff here were, I mean, I guess it's good. There's more cheese. There's more camembert coming up, everyone. I'm sorry about this, but we are a bit like a family, because people, you know, people stay in the organisation a long time. They're very I work with a group of very dedicated, committed people, and when there's a lot of loss. So, you know, part of my work has been to help people through that downsizing, and of course I did it in a solution focused way. I was asked to do a lot of teamwork and group work, so I was lucky to expand my skills, and I used to go to teams and do a session and say, well, what are your best hopes from this session? How can I make this helpful for you? And, you know, some people would say, well, we want to just talk about this, want to have a voice. And I say, well, you know, what difference will that make for you and your team? Do that. So I do a lot of teamwork, and I've done some additional training. This year I did training in Lego serious play. So I take my Lego with me on the flights to the field, and we do Lego serious play teams.
Lego
so
series.
got a really great job.
Yeah, and you must meet some amazing staff, considering where they're working in. How's that the approach that you use, kind of supporting them in really tough situations, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, solutions focus is great. When you can help people cope, use coping questions. What's getting you through? What's helpful for you? What do you pull on, to keep going? Because we have got an amazing committee staff, and I've just done a bit of research actually. Looking, I'm partnering. We partnered up with York St John University. I'm doing my PhD with them, and part of my PhD research, I wanted to make sure that it served a purpose and served the staff, and I'm very committed to kind of service. So I want to make it very practical, and how could we improve things for the staff? So I've just recently completed collecting the data for how to best support national humanitarians who work long term in non-family duty stations, because a lot of the work is around internationals and crisis and kind of sexy things, when things get up, and the people who hold so much for so long in really difficult places are often really overlooked in the research base. And I wanted to kind of flag up, exactly what these people do for us. They give up a huge amount. They parent at a distance. So our lovely management, I've got very supportive senior managers here who are really committed to wellbeing, so which is great. So they said that I could do this project, and we partnered up with York St John. So I've collected data, and I'm starting to go through the data now and kind of look at what keeps people going, what more the organisation can do to support them. So yes.
Wow.
nice piece.
I was going to say, because you've got loads of time on your hands, Diana, you must have.
Well,
she sits around playing with the monkeys.
Yeah, playing with Lego.
Monkeys.
I'm muffling back.
Yeah. Every now and then gets a dictaphone out. Oh, I have an idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my work's got lots of different strands, and I think that's why I enjoy it so much, because I do the individual work with people. I do lots of teamwork and team retreats and field visits, and I support a lot of our managers as well. Because the training brief it is kind of more of a coaching model, solution focused. So I found it and the managers have found it very helpful as well, particularly as we've gone through the downsizing. Of course, it was all about coping, but now it's about kind of moving forwards as well. There's the aftermath, and I think a lot of organisations miss the kind of supporting people in the aftermath. They think, oh, the downsize is done, that's it. And actually, it's often just the start of change for people. So I've done quite a lot of team support and management coaching to help people with the aftermath. There's been lots of teams, there's been role change, role diffusion. There's changes coming, lots of changes coming with our work. We've got a new country director that's got a very clear vision about where they want to go. So it's a lot of kind of change management. So which is what solution focus is particularly helpful for.
So in terms of the your research and your PhD, and what do you hope will happen as a result of that for people working on in these really high conflict areas?
Well, I hope that we can make some changes. I mean, I'm starting to get the data together and thinking about what can we do. And one thing that the staff have told me is how helpful it is to have point of contact. Not every country in our region has the luxury of having its own dedicated staff counsellor. It does make an enormous difference to people, actually, that there's someone that particularly someone going out regularly and caring for them. And then we've got some ideas about what else managers can do and team leaders to increase their kind of understanding of well-being and mental health. And one really interesting thing that came through was about women. I mean, this is quite gender focused, and one thing that is an issue at times is recruiting and retaining women in the field. And one thing that came through was about kind of the organisational kind of need to sort of have specific gender focused strategies. So I'm going to be sharing the full results with my my country director and then the organisation, and hopefully that in our country we'll do whatever we can, and I know that we will. We've got a very wellness focused senior manager and HR team. But of course, a lot of our policy and practice comes from HQ and the wider UN system, which obviously is quite large and a lot harder to influence. But I hope to put put the pebble in the pond and have some ripples.
Yeah, amazing. And because the UN obviously is all over the globe, and solution focused. I think you touched on it earlier about working across cultures. It's because the client's in charge. Is that so? When people say you've got to be culturally competent, you find SF, regardless of where you are or where the person's from, works for them.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Because we're asking them what they want to get, what their goals are, what their best hopes are, what difference it would make in their lives. And then, of course, it's about using the other tools in solution-focused approach, about reflecting kind of back. So using their language. And like for example, in Kenya, Kenya is very there's very strong religious and spiritual elements to the work. Most people go to church on a Sunday. It's very Christian oriented society. So a lot of perhaps someone was answer, like I'm thinking of a client about what they said to me about something being God's will, and using the words back to them, and if it was God's will, and you also played your part, so like it's like kind of weaving it in really. So I really enjoy working with the kind of spiritual element of the national, a lot of the national Kenyan clients. I think it brings a really interesting dimension to the work.
Yeah. I was going to ask, how do you relax? What do you do for fun?
Well, I mean, I'm lucky. Joe. I mean, Nairobi is a wonderful city to live in. I mean, before I came to Nairobi, I had the typical construction of hot, dusty Africa in my mind. And I think a lot of us in the West are brought up to be quite scared of Africa, to think that it's dangerous and really rough and underdeveloped. And it's, well, I mean, I think Nairobi is called the New York of Africa. So believe me, Joe, I'm not exactly toughing it out here. I mean, it's a life. It's not. You can see out the window how lush and green and beautiful it is, and the weather is really good. The climate's great because Nairobi is nearly 2,000 meters above sea level, so we have a very nice temperate climate. We get 2 rainy seasons, short and long rainy season a year, and we're going into the cold season now, which means it can go down to 10 degrees, which when you used to bore me 25, 30, it does feel pretty cold.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, I keep active. I love fitness. I love keeping active and fitness, and there are things in Nairobi that are more accessible and reasonable than in the UK, like personal trainers. So yes, I do that, and our campus here is phenomenal. It's I think we're on 120 acres, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's like a university campus. I think there's 3,000 or 4,000 of us here. Not just the World Food Programme, it's the United Nations headquarters for Africa. We're on a huge campus next to a forest, which is why we get the monkeys. The monkeys come along, and I like them. I find them endlessly entertaining, and part of my kind of every lunchtime, go for a walk. Lots of people walk around campus. It's really beautiful. They don't always come over to steal our food, the monkeys, just when they're hungry. But I have seen them raid our sweet kiosk. They've ganged up on the guy that runs the sweet kiosk and just stolen loads of sweets. And it's great. And I saw one of them sitting outside, and they got some gum, and it was so yeah. No, it's a really wonderful place to live, and lovely people, really lovely people. I felt very welcome here. I've got a lovely group of friends, which took a bit of time, but so I keep fit. I see my friends. I go for a walk in the forest. We've got a fabulous coastline. Obviously, the Indian Ocean is here, so and flights are very reasonable. So I go to the coast sometimes.
Wow, living a life of Riley.
Oh, I was going to say she's living the life, right?
No, I really do enjoy it. It's I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, I really enjoy my work. I'm very lucky.
Yeah, I mean it comes across, definitely comes across, because like we were saying earlier, you must have seen some things that we can only imagine. But it's I know you said it was Live Aid that got you kind of thinking about this journey, and what is it that's keeping you going? And I think you've touched on a lot of it already, but what is it about you that says, I want to keep doing this work, I want to go?
Well, I think it's the difference that I see that it makes to people's lives. I want my life to be one of meaning and purpose and service. That's really important to me, and I'm here to serve the staff, and I take great pleasure in that. I'm here to meet their needs and do the best that I can for them, and I have huge admiration for the people that I work with. Particularly those that work in field duty stations, and that's why I did my research on that, because they work in the toughest environment. I mean, when I started, because there hadn't been a dedicated country counsellor, there'd just been a counsellor that covered the whole region. So not all our field duty station had counselling visits, and some of them hadn't had a counselling visit for quite a while, because that's the way that it was structured at the time. And the first time I went out to the field duty stations, staff wanted to show me what they did, where they worked, and I wanted to understand it. And going to see food distribution at a refugee camp was really tough. It was really tough. And the first time I saw it, I had to leave. I had to go and cry in the car. It was really difficult. And these people work with this all the time, they're really dedicated people, really committed. Our staff are really dedicated, committed, to the cause, to humanitarians, and giving up so much, particularly women in the field. They give up so much, and of course doing this research, I heard more of the stories as well, about, how hard it is, the pain that it causes to not be with families, and how hard the choices are to, honour your calling and your vocation to do humanitarian work and still try to be there for your family. And it's very moving as well. It's very moving work. And I think that when we hear the stories as well, and I think what I love so much about solution-focused brief therapy is that you hear the story of strength and the story of resilience. You're towards that part of someone, and it's really wonderful. And I don't know about you, I think it's also been a huge protective factor as well. We know that there's a bit of research around that, about solution focused being protective, from burnout. And I found it, particularly when I worked in, I've worked in difficult places, and sometimes it is difficult going to the field. It's not easy. You want to do your best, and you hear stories from staff that, particularly because of the funding crisis, our food baskets went down, other services got cut. It was it's been really difficult, and it's hovering, but it because you're always talking or mostly talking strength and resilience, it's inspiring. I find the stories, and our staff so inspiring. And I found most sessions, solution focused sessions, are like that. They're inspiring because they're stories of how people cope, how people overcome, and where people want to get to. The vision that they have for their lives, and we get to help them on their way to it. We get to walk a little bit of the journey with them. So,
Oh, that's amazing. And I think you're right about this way of working, showing people that they've got, even in the most difficult circumstances, they've got some agency, and building that resilience. And that's, I think, probably why we love it as well, because it's quite empowering. You're not.
It is. Yeah.
So, do you use solution focus with your son, Diana? Or does he catch you out? Does he say, "Don't ask me them questions"?
I've learned. He's taught me, Joe. I mean, my son's older now. He's he's an autonomous adult. He's 29. But when I was training as a social worker and training on this work, and I used to bring it in, he'd tell me off. So he taught me to say to him, "Is it okay if I ask you a solution focused question?" So I ask consent. It's like with friends, I just ask consent and say, "Oh, can I put my solution focused hat on and ask you a solution focused question? Is that okay?" And sometimes he says yes, and sometimes he says no.
I absolutely love that. But what you realise is that when you do weave in SF questions, that sometimes you find that the kids actually start using it themselves. Without realising, and then they point blank deny that they've done it, but you can hear it. You can definitely hear it. And one of our colleagues' daughters who goes to college. She was using scaling questions with someone that was having a bit of a crisis at college. And when you ask her, she said, I don't know, it just came to me. Well, no, you've heard it and you've picked up on it. So I absolutely love it. Yeah, you can't help but pick up, really, can you? So I bet your son's kind of using some of the questions, but would never ever admit to it.
Probably.
Just even if it's just one. Yeah, you need to really listen next time you're talking to him. We've come to the end of the chat, guys.
Okay.
Any last questions from you, Joe or Diana?
I just found this conversation really eye-opening, inspiring. That a way of working which seems so simple on the surface can be so profound, even in the most difficult of circumstances. So, thank you for sharing, Diana.
No, that anyone that's listening, that comes across is that that you can do solution focused work in all sorts of places, you know, with all sorts of people, and it works well.
Yeah.
I would love Diana to start writing like a memoir, starting from the 13-14-year-old version of herself where she was grating cheese. I thought I want to work as a humanitarian, to then actually doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think the younger version of you would be saying right now if we could include her in this broadcast?
Oh, what would the Live Aid watching young Diana? I think she'd be delighted. I think she'd be delighted that we got to where we knew that we. I don't want to say destiny, but it sounds. But we got to where we wanted to get to. Yeah, I think she'd be over the moon.
Yeah, definitely. With her pop star on her wall. You know, you got all the whams up and everything else up there.
To run, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think you're such an inspiring person, and I think people can really learn so much from you. So keep doing what you're doing, and if ever you have time, do more of it. And on your way to the UK, I would like a souvenir, because we'll catch up. So if you can sneak in a monkey on your way.
You don't want a monkey. They do cause havoc.
Yeah. They do. I'd love that. I'd like to let one loose in the office to see what happens.
You don't, and their bathroom habits are absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, but we have to train them.
Yeah,
train them to use the bathroom. Thank you very much, Diana. Any last words from you?
Well, just keep on solution focus. Yeah, solution focus is great stuff. You know, it's just keep on keeping on, everyone.
Keep on keeping on. Oh, I like that. Keep on keeping on. Write that down, Joe. Keep on keeping on, and then we'll quote Diana. I like that. Can we just ask you to stay there for a couple of minutes? And for the rest of you, thank you for watching or for rewatching, and we will see you next time on FBS Chat.
Thank you.